Hi everybody. Got the camera set up on the tripod, and we're gonna be looking at these pieces of paper here. These things to do with the alphabet of lines. Okay, if we take a look here on this piece of paper, it names the different kinds of lines: visible lines, hidden lines, section lines, and so on. Right? And you have the opportunity here then, to practice drawing some of these lines on this piece of paper, right? We're actually going to do it 2 different times. The first time, I'm going to freehand this, just draw it as a sketch, to sketch these. And this paper, the instructions on here say that you're sketching, right? But the second time I do it, I'm going to actually get out a ruler and draw them neatly. And I might even take some time to measure some gaps here and such, and make mine really match what is here on these designs of the thing. Now, when you get down here to the break lines, this kind of break line or this kind, most of the time you really don't need 2 different kinds of break lines, but we're going to go ahead and draw them just the same as what they're providing here as examples. But definitely this little squiggly part here is always done freehand, and of course this is always done freehand. You don't, but when you're doing it neatly on a drawing, you would draw this part with a ruler and then do the little and then the next part and so on, right? So there's a few things to keep in mind. You don't want to do a sketch using a hard pencil. So I'm not taking my, as we've talked about before, I've got some of these pencils with the harder leads. This is a 5H pencil here. I don't know if you can read it there. A 5H. This is a 4H, and then you can tell when you use these, they're putting down the point is harder, and they're putting down a lot less lead. It'll be a lighter, thinner line because of the nature of the pencil. Right? And that's great when you're planning a drawing, when you're doing construction lines and stuff like that. But when you're doing when you're doing sketching, usually you just use your softer pencil. So I'm going to use an F pencil. I also have a 4B, which is a pretty soft pencil here, but I may try some of it on some of these too, just for fun. But for now, I'll stick with my most familiar one is the F pencil, right? And this sits somewhere below a 2H, but it's softer than a B or any of the 2B, 4B, and so on. When you get into the B range of pencils, those are softer leads, right? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and sorry, I'm trying to make sure this is in the view of the camera. I'm going to, just try to draw these by hand, nice and dark and solid, right? And connect the dots here. And you can see, it's not going to be perfect if you're doing it freehand, but hopefully, you can do okay there, right? And on these hidden lines, you want to try to be consistent of leaving little dashes with little spaces in between. The dashes are longer than the spaces. That's the most obvious thing about it, right? Like this, and so on down here. A section line is pretty much the same as a visible line, only a little thinner, right? Not quite as bold. So I'm trying to just press down a little less hard on that, right? Center lines come along and have long section, short section, long section, short, and so on, right? And a lot of times, what you're doing there is, when you do a circle, I'll just show you one on this piece of paper here. If I'm trying to show where a circle is, I'll do like this, and I'll just do a single dash in the middle. Long, short, long, like that, and then coming the other direction, long, short, long, like that. And then I can do dimensions to that. If that's near the edge of a piece of paper, I can make extension lines on the, near the edge of a piece, I can make extension lines out here and bring my dimensions to show where the center of the circle is. And we've seen that before when we do dimensioning, right? And so similar stuff all through here. I'm not going to bore you by having you watch me do all these. Like I said, with the break lines though, we'll do this and we'll go like that. And we'll just put a little in there and then go along another little, you know, squiggle, I would guess you would call it, like that, you know, to make a break line, right? And phantom line here has the 2 dashes in it, and so on. Now, when we go to do the hidden lines, oh, I'm sorry, let me go on on here then, I want you to repeat this practice on this section too here. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4 visible lines right here. So one more time, as carefully as you can, freehand, try to draw those straight across there, right? Okay, and sort of work on your technique for what works best for you to, you know, draw as best you can. Okay, and I would go down the line. So I've got a couple lines here for practice, and then 4 of them here of that same kind. And down here is these lines here, and center lines, right, like that, and so on, all down the page. So you're practicing here and practicing here, and this is a sketch, so it's done freehand, right? And go ahead and neatly letter your name in here. And we'll talk about lettering next, but I'm going to go ahead and neatly letter my name down here where it says drawn by, you know, right there. You can see, whoops, maybe you can see that I'm trying to use those guidelines as a way to help me do the lettering, right? So your job is to fill this up and fill this up with practice lines, trying to imitate the sample lines they give you are for visible, hidden, section, and all the others down the row. Okay? So that's the assignment on this piece of paper. Now, because I think you deserve extra bonus learning, I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing, basically the exact same page, but using a ruler. Okay, and I happen to have a ruler right over here. I thought I had a ruler. Okay. So in this case, I'm going to do the exact same thing, but this time I'm actually going to take the time to line up using a ruler, and hopefully I'm going to end up with some really good lines here. Right? To match the ones above. Even though, like I said, even though this page says sketch, I want you to do it again, do a second version of it using a ruler. It's nice and neat. And then for these hidden lines, I want to go with, I'm going to suggest that you go with a standard spacing of 1/8 of an inch for the dash and 1/16 of an inch for the space, right? So this will be a little bit time consuming, but I'm just going to go ahead and mark these. Yeah. 1/8 of an inch for the dash and 1/16 of an inch for the space, right? This is going to take me a minute. I don't know how badly you want to watch me do this, but right, and you should end up with something like that, looking fairly uniform. Okay. And so on, all across the page. That's going to be kind of time consuming, but you can do it. Same thing with the center line. You know, sort of you take a guess at how big the gaps are, how big the actual lines are, and how big the gaps are, and measure that out so that so that we can have a really good uniform drawing there. So if this is a 1/2 inch long here, and a 16-inch gap, and an 1/8 line, and a 16-inch gap, and a 1/2 inch long, right? 1/16 of an inch gap, 1/8 inch long, right? Okay, and that's pretty good center line right there, right? Right here where we, you can see these should be consistent then. Hidden line up here and so on, right? The break lines, you know, those are going to have a certain amount of freehand aspect to them, right? This one's purposely, you know, like that, and this one's purposely got the little squiggles in it. What I would do is like go along and draw solid lines with the ruler and leave an 1/8 inch gap in them, like that, something like that, and then you can come back and do a little thingy in between, right, to do the solid line with the ruler. Okay. Okay. And again, we'll letter your name in down here. Okay, so doing one version of this using freehand and one version using the ruler. We should, that should be some really good practice making the different kinds of lines. Now, when it comes to lettering is really critical on a drawing from the standpoint that there needs to be no doubt in the reader's mind exactly what you're trying to say. Okay, you don't want your little letters to be, you know, fancy or sloppy or anything that could leave doubt for the person getting that information. So I'm going to start by drawing a big example here. You're creating guidelines on the page. And the guidelines should be really light, just enough for you to see them. And then these are what they call block letters. They're all capital letters, and they're all solid lines. So if I want to do, you know, a B. Sorry, I started drawing the wrong letter. Right, I'm going to try to do something like that. The letter is going to go all the way from the top to the bottom of the guidelines, right? Now, of course, you might want to try to plan exactly how you're going to do, right? But go ahead and let the thing go all the way to the top of the guidelines, all the way to the bottom, right? Like that. And of course, now this is a little difficult to do, these tall letters like this. You're not doing this. These are more like the space of about maybe 3/16 of an inch tall, or a little more than 1/8 of an inch tall. Let's see. Actually, I think they're 1/8 of an inch tall. Okay, so these spaces are only 1/8 of an inch tall. So for you to make a straight line that's only 1/8 inch tall, that's not that hard to do, right? When I go to draw this number 4 here, right? Actually, this pencil's a little too soft, right? And again, I'm making sure that my letter goes all the way from the top, the top line to the bottom line neatly. I don't want it to overlap those lines, but I do want it to go all the way from the top line to the bottom line, okay? And of course, it's handy to have your eraser close by. If you mess up, you know, do like this. Now, if you really have trouble drawing letters this small, you can make them a little taller if that works for you. You just go ahead and do what works, but I find this 1/8 inch size to be about the best about the best size for my my level of skill, right? And it doesn't. So in order to get these kind of letters, it doesn't take artistic skill. You don't have to say, oh, I really need to see the thing. I need to visualize it. Those kinds of things that are important to an artist are not necessarily important to a technical drawing person. You can just, if you can just make a straight line, you can do this kind of lettering, okay? So I'm going to give you this worksheet to work on as well, okay? And you'll need to print it out and do that. If you can't print it out, some people have an issue with access to a printer, simply take a ruler on a blank sheet of paper and make some lines, draw nice and light for your guidelines, okay? And yeah, then you'll be good. All right. Thanks for listening. That's our alphabet of lines and lettering.